Today is hopefully the last day of major earthwork here. Right now he's burying some rocks, and after that we have to figure out the inflow and outflow. So the laser down there is at the point where we want, more or less, that corner is where we want to collect water that's coming towards me from this whole valley. That's where most of the surface water is going to come in. And I want it to hit where I am and go that way. We're not going to be able to get it quite as good as I want. Basically, water's coming from up there and moving towards me, and it's constricted by a ridge over there. So it's flowing towards me and then onto the pond. And the challenge here is, as you look back, water is now coming from behind me and going towards the excavator. It hits a low spot down there, but we want the pond to be filled from there. We could just knock the berm down and let water flow through there. Well, this isn't really a berm, sorry, because this is on the upslope side. This pile of soil doesn't really matter that much. That one over there is what actually impounds water, and the water will go that way. So we could just let it go down in there, but we want to be able to walk or even drive something around this whole surface so that it's nice and accessible for them. So what we're going to try to do is grade soil out and fill this as much as possible so that we get all the water to move that way. It's also good for the pond because it's good for water to enter on one side and exit on the other, just to get fresh water moving through. It would be sort of awkward to have water come in here and in here and then leave right there. So we're just going to try to simplify that. We will end up with a little bit of a low spot. I'll think of that as like a wetland pre-filter type thing, so that water will come down here. This will get sediment, and then it'll backfill into a swale that goes that way. So we just don't have enough material to fill this all in so that it all moves that way. Other than that, things are going really well. Well, that's not even it's just a challenge. And then what we'll do is take the bulldozer and backblade everything once we finish grading so that it's nice and smooth, and then take our piles of topsoil, or first we'll cut the sill with the dozer so that we have the overflow set. Then we'll put the topsoil out, and at that point we'll get a delivery of straw and then seed and mulch. So just to explain this from a different angle, here I am. I placed the laser at the point where I want all the water to come to. So it's coming from up there, down here, and some is going to come off of this barn, and some is going to come off of this slope, and some is going to come from there. All of it is going to come to here and flow in. So we're going to cut this corner down. It only needs to go down 4 inches over there. We're going to start the cut here, and we're going to finish it like over there. So it's going to be like 25 feet. You couldn't even really call it a swale. It'll just be, you know, you'll be able to drive over it without even noticing, and it'll be vegetated eventually. And so all that water will settle in very gently. It will be able to take enormous rainfalls with just laminar flow, so you won't erode this out. And then you can sort of see from this angle, there's a little dip there. And we're gonna work with that as our outflow. And again, that outflow is gonna be like 18 feet wide, maybe 20 feet wide. And the slope that it's going down is gonna be like 1% or so. So without really doing any calculations as far as, 10-year rain event or 100-year rain event, it's just, this pond is equipped to handle immense flows, both to fill the pond and to flow out of the pond. Even if we get an inch an hour for half a day or something, like just crazy amount of rain, it's just gonna gently flow over there. And the thing is, there's really no secondary place for it to go, because the grade I just measured goes up, 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 all the way over there, up, all the way over there. And so it will just fill in the outflow, and then if it were to go up, it would just crest over there to there, and then have 40 feet of outflow that it could just flow laminarly over, with a very, very shallow slope on the other side of that berm. So it's just like, I don't want to say erosion proof, but pretty much erosion proof, even in like an Irene. It's just, it can't blow out. I mean, we're also just lucky because, like I said, this is a hole in the ground pond, so the berm isn't really much of a berm. There's just it's a very low risk, low potential energy pond. There's no berm that really can blow out. And then what we're gonna do here is, this material that we feathered out and graded, we're gonna cut this and put that over in that pocket, so that will get rid of that low spot and get all that water to hit here, hit the edge of that berm, come here, and flow right in. We had a little change of plans. It was too much material to try to fill that low spot in. So this diversion ditch that we dug in the beginning, we're gonna repurpose it. He's gonna use that to dig a little swale heading towards me. My feet are standing on ground that is a foot higher in elevation than the dozer. So all the water will travel that direction. So he's cutting a little swale straight to me. And once we want to fill that in, oh, that soil should be going the other way. Oh. Clean it up after, I guess. Once we fill that in, water will start filling the pond. Just wanted to explain a little bit about how I do the surveying. I'm really not an expert surveyor, but I've figured out how to use this stuff so that it's functional for me. So you could really put the laser anywhere, it doesn't matter. What it's going to do is just keep a reference level for your whole site. So what I'm interested in is where the water is going to flow. I know it's going to flow over that way, and I've already determined that that is our lowest point on the berm by design. So it's going to go in the middle, and what I did is I just decided exactly what the height of the water is that I want for any kind of surveying. I just said, well, over there the water's going to flow over, and I want it at a certain height. And so that I made that a reference height. It happened to be that it was about 5'6" on this thing, which just means that that's at a certain height off the ground. This is at a certain height off the ground. And so that's my reference height for the height that I am going to have the water get to. And then that's the height of the overflow. So you could come here, and this is the inflow, and I've got that reference height on here, and that's where we hit level. What that means is that if I have my water, if I have my outflow set over there the way I wanted it to, the water would ultimately fill up to the bottom of this thing. And you can do that all the way around. You could put little flags and that would tell you what your water level is going to look like at the end when it's filled up. It would be kind of nice if there was some kind of laser that could cast a beam out that you could see that would say this is your water level if your outflow is there. But that's not available, so you just have to do it this way. And this is already awesome. I have this laser, and doing the surveying without a laser is a much more laborious process. So we've determined how high it's going to be, and now we just need to, well, I guess the sticking point can be if you figure out where your outflow is going to be, but then maybe that would only fill it up to here on this side of the berm if you're on like a really steep slope, and then that will just look really awkward. And of course, we've been checking that kind of thing since we started building this, so that wouldn't happen. But that has happened to me early on in my pond building experiences, where you're a little bit off, you don't have the laser level, and then you say, well, my outflow is going to be at this elevation, and oh shoot, that's not really going to fill the pond up in a very nice way. So just wanted to show the work that has happened over here. This is the channel that the water is going to enter into, and this is the water that's been released. It's coming at us. It's been going for 40 minutes, so it's pretty slow, but there's a nice actual steady flow in there. So this is that diversion that we cut off and then re-diverted now towards the pond. So we've got a trickle after a long dry spell with no rain at all. This is as much as you could hope for. And so this is really catching a huge amount. So when we do get a rain, this thing is going to send a lot of water to the pond. And this is just really a 1% slope that's going to bring it in there, fill it up, and flow on. So now we'll just finish up grading here, shake out some topsoil, go cut that outflow, and we'll be... All right, enough talking about it. We're finally cutting out the material for the outflow. Amazingly, on this part of the berm, we had to go down 10 inches. We have to, so I'll be monitoring. We'll cut out some material, use it to fill holes here and there, and we're gonna go for a sill, so the bottom isn't gonna be a U shape, it's gonna be a sort of flat bottom of the channel, so that when the water does overflow, it can overflow over not just a small channel, but a large spillway, so that there will definitely not be any erosion. So we came back the next day, and the channel is working exactly as designed. It's always nice to see that. The water hadn't made it here yet when we left, so the water is coming down. We only gave it one place to go, so it had very little choice. I think the elevation of the water has come up a foot already since last night, and as you can see, we're just figuring out the outflow exactly now. See the bulldozer, where the bulldozer levels out right about there-ish. So now it's starting to go back up. That's our low spot. So you can see that's a very gradual spillway where the water is going to come up and go through that channel. And if it were to come up in some crazy rain event, it would just take up a wider and wider portion of that channel because it's so gradual. This isn't like digging a channel with a a shovel or an excavator. This is feathering it out with a bulldozer, so there's really no other option. The land goes up on that side, up on that side. So that's how almost there at the exact height that I want it. And then after that, the bones are done, the framework is done, and then it's finished. Nothing like the final backplating. Beautiful. Super smooth. The water is going to come like this. And go on into... We also got super lucky here because this is the path of the water. It goes into a natural filter that is huge. This is the way the water goes. And there's another little pond, a natural pond at that rose bush in the center of the frame. So incredible biological filter. Gonna take all of that sediment, or much of that sediment, will never get into any water body. Pretty lucky. So here's the final outflow. Most of the time the channel is going to be constricted to this little spot. But that's really just an inch or 2 inches lower than most of this area. So that way you get an area that stays mostly dry most of the time, but if it were to ever get a really big rain event, be connected to the floodplain, which would be this whole flat space, like almost instantaneously. So all the water that was draining out that way got diverted, and now it's coming in here. It's filling up pretty quickly. It's a little erosion right there, but that's not the hugest deal because eventually this is going to backfill right up to there, so that's going to be a flat transition. This is just the one-time erosion from filling, so not a huge deal. The pond's filling up really well. It's been filling for about 3 days, and we're in a drought. We just got about a 4/10 of an inch of rain last night, which is the only rain we've had for like almost 6 weeks. So for it to be filling is really good, and it's filling from groundwater and from this surface water. But we're done, so just gonna seed it and mulch it with some mulch hay that we just got delivered just now. But it's pretty smooth. You could pretty much walk this without looking at the ground, which is what you want. No, this is a little bit abrupt there. You might want a little footpath to go over this thing eventually. But everything pretty much worked out as we had hoped. Looks like it'll be another maybe 3 or 4 days at this rate until the water crests on the overflow, which I want to really make sure that that's functioning properly. And then that'll be it. I should mention also that there is a significant need for planting after we're done. We're just going to be seeding and mulching, and the landowner is going to do the wetlands and pond species planting. So but you can just sort of leave the pond to fill in naturally, but this is sort of like, when you till a garden, if you don't plant something there, you've created all this habitat, weeds will take over. So that can happen in ponds. Eventually, ponds like this will naturally develop usually a cattail bed, but it could also be like Phragmites, which I don't have anything against Phragmites other than if it really takes over a pond like this, it changes the aesthetic a lot, and it's not the nicest thing to look at. It's kind of like a rowdy, take over the whole space kind of plant, which you don't necessarily want in a highly managed area. So, and then you can get, the water quality is the thing that determines where the vegetation will land eventually, probably more so than anything else. And by that I mean, you know, you can plant all these cool plants like lilies, water lilies, and, you know, all kinds of things you can do, but if the water quality is low, then, you know, they won't survive, and it'll just be kind of algae and swampy, marshy plants, which is not as fun. But if you have good quality flowing water, that's like sort of the soil of the garden. That sets the tone of what plants really can grow there. So that looks like it's going to be really good here. And I think it'll support a really good, diverse range of healthy plants. So here we got the finished product, finally. And a nice little rain today has filled up the inflow channel. And we got the whole area mulched and seeded before this rain came. Nice smooth landscape. And probably with this rain, although it's not going to amount to a whole lot, maybe with this and another day or two, the pond will finally crest the outflow and will be at capacity, which is just awesome for it having been so dry during the construction. Finish it, and then boom, get some rain, and this is going to be growing grass and clovers and mix of different pollinating good plants, good for pollinators within a week maybe. So pretty excited about that. There's this interesting line in the middle of the pond right now. I don't exactly know what that's about. I think it's probably the water flowing in from the surface water is maybe a different turbidity or density or something like that. But anyway, it is done, and that's a wrap. 250,000 gallons.